This is Ryan Holleman presenting my final project in the Quality Improvement and Patient Safety course within the A.T. Steele University Doctor of Athletic Training program. When looking at my final project for this course, one thing that I wanted to do was look at a quality gap and address a current need that I face on a daily basis. To give you a little bit of background, my primary clinical responsibility is with the men's basketball team at NC State University. We're an NCAA Division I institution within the ACC conference. One of the things that's unique about our institution is a group that we've recently formed within the past year that we've called the PAC Performance Team. And what this is it's an interdisciplinary group that's put together to put a focus on how to improve the student athlete experience. This group is comprised of members from sports medicine, strength and conditioning, nutrition, psychology, academics, facilities, compliance, as well as members of our administrative staff, assistant, and associate ADs. So one of the things that I wanted to do was actually utilize and use this project to actually put together something that we could focus on within this group and improve the student athlete experience. And one of the things that we've been discussing within the last year is the uptake in the sports nutrition field and kind of the how that falls under sports medicine. And there's really not a lot of definition or really guidance in this field. As you know, I think the last data we had was 25 total schools in the Division I BCS actually employed a full-time nutritionist or registered dietitian. At NC State, we actually employ two. We're fortunate to have one with the men's basketball team on a daily basis, so they are available for practices, games, travel, meal planning, everything. So we're really looking to kind of define the role and use it as a model for other NCAA institutions and how we utilize our nutrition department. So for our quality gap, we wanted to look at what we know versus what we do. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, Dietitians of Canada, and the American College of Sports Medicine recently released a statement in regards to the role that dietitians can play in performance and recovery. We know from this document that the recovery should be a tailored effort for each individual participant. So one of the things that we're going to look at is the recovery strategy and to ensure that each athlete is receiving nutritional supplementation following their workouts so that we're actually doing what we know will work based on the research and available evidence. When we look at our quality gap, our goals should follow the STEEP criteria that is defined by the Institute of Medicine. And after reviewing this with our team members, we feel that we actually meet all areas of the STEEP criteria with safe, timely, efficient, effective, equitable, as well as what we feel is the most important, which is the patient-centered approach. We're looking to potentially decrease injury rates, decrease post-workout fatigue, increase performance, as well as decrease the waiting times and improve the efficiency for the schedule of the student athlete. Our improvement team is comprised of a certified athletic trainer, strength and conditioning coach, registered dietitian, academic coordinator, and director of basketball operations. The director of basketball operations will essentially act as our liaison to the coaching staff. They have their ear on a daily basis and can be that voice for us when implementing change to the head coach. The AIM statement is as follows. The NC State men's basketball support staff quality improvement team will ensure that within 6 months of initiating a student-athlete scheduling system, 75% of the men's basketball players will have received appropriate nutritional recovery supplementation within the 30-minute window following all physical activity. When looking at our AIM statement, we wanted to ensure that our AIM statement met the SMART criteria of being specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and timely. We feel that our AIM statement clearly states the aim of the project, so we are very specific. We have a measurable time frame of 75%. We feel that this is very attainable. We originally started with a 90% goal that we further reduced to 75% to actually become attainable. We realize that we can increase this goal as we proceed through the project and cycle through a few of the PDSA cycles. We feel that this is very reasonable. We have the resources in place to do this project. It's a matter of actually carrying it out and performing it. So to address our gap, one of the things that we need to do is look at our current process. Each student athlete at the beginning of every semester sits down with their academic coordinator and develops a class schedule. The basketball coaching staff utilizes this schedule to design practice around to avoid any class conflicts. The support staff is then given a hard copy of the student athlete class schedule, and this is really kind of where our project comes into play with the communication piece to ensure that we're getting the athletes their recovery. So the student athlete's given the student athlete sets their schedule, and then the support staff is given a hard copy at the beginning of each semester. This is a one-time grid approach to the schedule. It's not a living document, which is where we really have started to add the new online system called Teamworks. So moving into the daily process now, the first thing we need to ask is, are there any additions to the student athlete schedule? This could be a lift, a rehab session. If there is no additions, the student athlete will just attend their regular practice, and the RD will distribute nutritional supplementation within 30 minutes following their activity. One of the things we need to look at if there are any additions is, does it conflict with class? These kids are student athletes first and foremost, so we need to ensure that we're setting them up for academic success in front of their athletic success. If it does conflict with class, we want to ask, can it be rescheduled? If it can, that's our priority. We will reschedule it and then revisit this area of the flow chart on a different day. If it cannot, we will input into the Teamworks calendar. This is the online software that we spoke about earlier that will be the new change for our project. One of the features for this software is that once you input something into the calendar, you can set a notification. So we can set all of our support staff members a text message, email, however we decide to go about that, to receive that the athlete has had an addition to their schedule. So here we curb the problem of a one-time document with now a living and current system. Once that new item is scheduled, the student athlete will attend it. They need to decide if this required physical activity. If it did not, they will go about their day. If it does, we will go back into the flowchart and the RD will distribute nutritional supplementation within 30 minutes, and we know that they will because they've already been notified. The next step for our group was actually to run through and put together a cause and effect diagram. First thing we needed to do was look at our problem. The NC State men's basketball athletes do not always receive nutritional recovery supplementation within 30 minutes of their physical activity. So from here we put together 4 branches that we thought were important: methods, policy, materials, and people. For the methods, there was no defined way to ensure nutrition supplementation is available following physical activity sessions. As far as policies go, sports medicine was the only group that actually had a specific policy, and this was actually to only notify academics of any change to the schedule that would actually potentially conflict with academics. So if the athlete had an appointment or something that was going to miss class, we were required to notify the academic coordinator. Nutrition, strength and conditioning, academics do not have any policies in place to communicate schedules to other support staff, which herein lies one of our breakdowns. As far as materials go, electronic devices would be needed. There was a concern that not everyone had electronic devices, and if they did, there would be a need for internet access at all times. Storage space was also a need at one of our facilities to ensure that nutrition supplements could be stored appropriately. Many moving pieces here is under the people branch, the athletic trainer, one of their concerns was improper recovery, which could potentially lead to an increased injury risk. The RD had concerns over improper recovery as well as the timing of recovery. Strength and conditioning had concerns over a decrease in performance in the weight room if the athletes were not receiving the appropriate recovery. Academic coordinators, concerns with the communication aspect of this and any potential conflicts that would coincide with academic obligations. Student athlete, their concern kind of ties all of these together, that the improper recovery could lead to a decrease in performance and or an increased injury risk. So when we look at our specific measure of improvement, one of the things that we need to know is how do we know a change results in improvement? If we review back to our aim statement, our goal was 75%. This will be a key marker for us in our improvement, and we will measure this through a living document that our RD will have by their nutrition station that actually physically marks off who did and did not receive supplementation and if they received it within the appropriate window of our 30-minute time frame. We do not have a baseline on this data, so really what we're looking at is once we fully commit to using the Teamwork software, we will have a 6-month trial error, and what we're looking at is at that 6-month marker to have a 75%. So essentially we've kind of set this up as a pass-fail. One of the things that we can look at for future goals in measuring improvement is not just the percentage of players that actually are receiving supplementation. Once we can meet this goal, one area that we can kind of spread this and look into further improvement is actually measuring things such as injury rates. We could look at performance gains, things such as increases in their max lifts, such as bench press, deadlift. We can also look at their performance on the court, looking at shooting percentage, free throw percentage, things like that. When we look at the selection of the change idea, we want to ask what changes can we make that will result in improvement. For us, it was the communication piece. So we needed to put a system in place and have a true area for everyone to communicate. For us, this was the Teamwork software. It was fully vetted by our football and women's basketball programs who are already utilizing this. So again, the resources were in place. It was just a matter of us coming together and looking at that. We needed to identify our measures of change, which for us is going to be tracking and meeting that 75% goal. And then we'll utilize the PDSA method as many cycles as we need to fine-tune this project. When looking at the PDSA cycle, the first thing we needed to do was go through our plan phase. This involves the quality improvement team establishing a plan of action and developing a hypothesis for the group. So during this phase, the group decided to implement the online software Teamworks. The group decided that this was the most appropriate software available. We vetted it by speaking with other teams at our institution who use it, as well as them being a local company. We had representatives that were able to come over and speak with us and show us the features. The nutrition staff will track the number of athletes that receive the supplementation and also within what time frame they did that. So they will track that in minutes. And our hypothesis is that by implementing the Teamwork software, the goal of 75% of the athletes receiving nutritional supplementation within their recovery window will be met. The do phase, this is where we're going to carry out the plan. We expect a few kind of kinks and wrinkles as we go through. We know that a system's only as good as the information that is put into it. So with that being said, every member of this team will have essentially a new duty added to their daily responsibilities. Whenever a student athlete has something added to their schedule, they will have an extra step in their daily process to actually go through and input this into the Teamwork software. The study phase is where we're actually going to look to analyze the data that we've collected. We'll look to track the information that we've requested, as well as look and see how many people are actually utilizing the Teamwork software appropriately. And another thing that we can do is actually take a survey and look at the difficulties that the support staff, coaches, or the student athlete faced during this first round of the PDSA cycle. The ACT phase will actually lead us into the next PDSA cycle, as we know that this is a I guess it is an ending process, but essentially we'll use this to evolve our project. We anticipate that issues may arise, and we can use the ACT phase to actually cycle back into another planning phase. As far as a spread plan goes, the basketball team was the perfect team to actually use this and implement this with first and foremost. They're a team that utilizes facility where only they operate out of. So we had a small sample size that we could utilize, a small space, and we can actually use that. Our spread plan will actually be to fine tune that. Once we can start with the 75%, we'll move it up to 90, 95%, and then once we kind of feel like we've got that perfected, we can spread it out to other teams and other facilities at our institution. And we've also discussed sharing this plan with the other ACC members. We have a sports medicine conference every May where we have panel discussions, breakout groups with each sport and the athletic trainers that work with those sports. And so we're always looking for topics to discuss and how we can improve the student athlete experience within the conference. Final reflections, I found this quote from Albert Einstein I really liked, that if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. So I think for us, and anytime that we're addressing any quality gaps, the first thing that we need to do is actually address them and not just become a think tank. We need to actually put plans in action, and the way that we do that is actually to keep that very simple. This class is kind of taught step-by-step process. It lays out the criteria, everything that we need to be successful when setting this up. So this was a very, very helpful course for me professionally. So what I took away from that is to keep everything simple, use the process, and put things in action. I want to thank the professors and the classmates for a great quarter of class. I've really enjoyed the interaction with everyone on the discussion boards. Look forward to the different views and different settings and the quality gaps that everyone else provides within their projects. Thanks.